investigando un poco más detalle, porque vas a preguntar algo sobre tus preguntas de investigación. Y obviamente este va a cambiar un poco, tal vez, en la manera que van a dar clases después, las otras clases que vas a observar después. Entonces tienes que cuidar en eso, porque no es recomendable que vas a hablar así mucho si ellos van a cambiar en la manera que están dando clases, ¿verdad? No quiero que estás influyendo mucho la manera que están dando clases.
¿Podría así como pedirle sus lesson plan para la semana?
Sí, ese es otro data source.
El lesson plan que...
Sí, 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 sí. Sí, entonces ese es un otro tipo de información que puedes incluir. Y, pero bueno, entonces tienes que evaluar si es necesario, si es muy necesario tener una entrevista. Si es algo que tienes así muchas dudas y que piensas que necesitas esa información para seguir observando clases, ok, pero tal vez sin preguntando mucho, muy profundamente, tal vez preguntas que sería mejor hasta el final, cuando ya tengas todas las observaciones. Entonces, es como delicado hay que hacer, tienes que tener una razón para justificar eso. Entonces, pues me dice si después una o dos observaciones, si piensas, necesito una entrevista, pero pues me dice si podemos practicar y ver primero si es necesario y la segunda qué tipo de preguntas puedes presentar sin dando tanta información que tal vez podría influir las otras observaciones.
Entonces, voy a hacer la primera observación la siguiente semana y ya paso si tengo una duda.
Sí, y vamos a pensar la posibilidad de sacar más información la segunda semana, no la próxima, pero la semana después. Podría ser otras entrevistas, puede ser algo con los alumnos, no sé, depende, porque también tienes preguntas relacionadas a los alumnos, ¿no?
Las preguntas relacionadas a los alumnos van a ser después de las observations. ¿Por qué se comportó así? Que me dé el background, el student's profile.
Ah, ok. Entonces, ¿estás planeando entrevistas con los alumnos y, y el maestro?
No tanto con los alumnos, sino con el maestro de los alumnos.
Entonces, ¿no vas a hacer nada con los alumnos?
O sea, bueno, así ponemos las observaciones. Hasta donde yo lo tenía pensado, no es así.
Y no tienes preguntas sobre los alumnos, ¿verdad?
Para con ellos que ellos me respondan, no.
¿No? Let me just double check.
La primera research question sí es así como para ellos, pero la puede responder el maestro también. Okay.
How do students choose to work together in small groups? Sí, 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 basan así. De hecho, es más...
Hacia los alumnos.
Yeah, the first question, yeah, I think you're going to need, because you're going to be evaluating, you're going to be recording the conversations with each group. How many groups are you?
At least 2 or 3.
Okay. I would probably say 2 groups because you're going to be having a lot of data to analyze.
Two.
I would think 2.
Okay.
Now, you need to decide which 2, and that you may work that out with the teacher. You need to have a reason for choosing these 2. So it's not just like you need.
Can I ask the teacher which are the groups which contain the students? You can tell me about the way they participate or do not participate. Yeah, so that she can tell me, yes, they are the ones that never participate.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how they divide up the groups. Like, does the teacher decide beforehand, and he or she goes to the class and says, "Okay, here's your group. You guys are in these groups," or because that's what you're researching too. Is
and
so.
How about if the first observation I have is like just observing?
I think that's a good idea. Just
and
start
identify
observing
by myself the students that are not participating, and then the next observation focus on the small
All
groups.
Right. So the first class you just observe, kind of, and observe. Now I'm assuming you need to make sure that the students are working in groups. Like that's normal behavior. Like in normal class, they're working in groups. So I'm assuming that that's the case. So when you start observing, okay, they're going to be. I don't know how it's going to be. Okay, are they just automatically working in groups, or is the teacher going to say, "Okay, students, we're going to work in groups"? Okay, but anyway, you observe, see how that comes together. There's different scenarios. First scenario is you observe, and they're already in groups. They already know what groups to work in, and they just start working. So if that's one case, then you just then maybe you have an interview after that first class and ask very general questions about, okay, how long have they been working in those groups, right? And I'm recording this today, so how long have you been working in those groups? And then you could ask questions about how the teacher decided, how did they form those groups?
If I have another observation sheet and with 2 options, if the teacher plays them or the teacher just said, okay, get in your teams.
Okay, when you say another observation sheet?
But for the first class.
But what observation sheet are you using?
The one that only said time activity description.
Just use that. I mean, that's not going to change.
Okay, so I can say that in the description. Teacher said get in your teams.
Yeah, you just write down whatever they say. Okay. Or the teacher said, yeah, you just write down whatever they say. And you're recording the class also.
Video or?
Well, at least audio. At least audio. Yeah. Video is always better, but if it's problematic, then just
for the first class it would be better video, right? So that I can observe. After that, analyze the students that couldn't see that were not participating.
Yeah, if you can do video, it's better. But you need to always have a good audio. So, just decide on one or the other. But make sure that you always have a good audio. But video helps to see kind of the positioning, like of how the teacher's walking around and that type of thing. So,
but as we were saying, observation is the first step, right? So just observe and
I would start with the observation first, sure. And then from there, see if you need a quick interview to get additional information. Now, so another scenario is that the teacher comes in and says, "Okay, class, I want you to form your own groups. This may be the first time, teams of 3, whatever, and you form your own groups. And maybe this is the first time, and then so they have to work out on their own and form their own groups. That's another scenario. A third option is that the teacher comes in and says, "Okay, I have divided you guys up into groups. You guys are group 1, you guys are group 2," and so the teacher designates. So depending on one of those 3 scenarios will determine what you do next, whether you need to have an immediate interview or if you can wait.
Ask why did she place the students this manner, right?
Right, and you could wait at the end, or you could. It just depends on what you feel you need. If you think that you need to have certain information, then you need to inquire. But here's the thing: the point is, you need to determine very quickly which of those two groups that you want to interview. And if the teacher already has the groups divided up, right, then you can decide on which groups that you can observe. But you may need to talk with the teacher and decide that. But if the teacher normally is just saying, oh, they form groups on their own.
She told me that she did it both by themselves and also
right.
she interviewed.
But what I'm referring to is what you observe. Right. What she's saying in general, that's fine. But now what I'm referring to is that first class that you observe, that is what now you're concerned about. Okay. So decide on, those are things to think about. If you think we need to have a discussion before you have that interview, you're not sure, that's fine, let me know. But it's just, this is part of the research here, is kind of observing, getting some information, and then adapting how you're going to continue. We can't just plan out, this is what you're going to do. Even though I'm asking you to do it here, this is just to kind of give you an idea to think about how you might do it. But in reality, it's going to depend on what the information that you get. So I would keep that in mind whenever you do your first observation. Just start with just a general observation. And then after that first one, you need to know which two groups, student groups, you want to focus on. And you decide if for you to make that decision, do you need to talk with the teacher or not? Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it depends. I mean, it may be that you have two groups that are just super obvious and you want to, but there has to be a reason, that's the point, right? So you can't tell the seniorales, I just chose these two groups, flipped a coin, and yeah, it has to be.
So can I write, like, for example, though there are integrated like 5 teams, team A, B, and C, A, B, C, D, and E. Yes. So should I write this is conformed by fulanito, perenganita, and so on?
Well, you're gonna have, you can do A, B, C, group A, B, and C. These are I'm sorry. If there's two groups, Group A and Group B, these are the two groups. Now you're going to analyze those participants, and you're going to use pseudonyms later. Okay, and so you can associate certain pseudonyms, fake names, with roles maybe, or language that they used, or ways that they interacted. But you can do that later. You don't need that. I mean,
no.
Yeah, you don't need it right now. But when you start analyzing, you'll need to keep track of that. But that's more part of the analysis. Right now, it's just trying to find those two groups and try to get as much detailed information as possible. What you might do, too, is even though that first class, you don't know who you're going to observe, which groups, I would take a recording device and just put it somewhere with the group so you could test your equipment and test to see how it sounds, even though you're not going to use it. Yeah. You're not even going to use any of the data, perhaps. It's just to test and say, okay, can I hear right, or because you may
Is that trustable device?
Right, and all that. So that's another thing too. You can have, and even the recording device, todo, it's kind of a test. So that would be beneficial. And since you're going to have plenty of time to collect the data, knock on wood, you should. I think that's what I would do. Yeah. So.
Okay, as soon as I have the first observation sheet, and if possible, a brief interview with the teacher, I will come.
Okay. Right, yeah. And that first interview will be brief. It won't be a deep interview, just kind of basically to see how
based on what I wrote, what I observed. Okay, so why, how?
Yeah, but basically focused on them dividing up. How do they divide up in groups?
Another recording would be great for that?
All interviews now are recorded. Even if it's brief, even if it's 2 minutes, recorded. And if you run into this teacher in the hall and you didn't plan on an interview, but you start having a conversation, say, I'm sorry, can I record what you're saying? So it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So so let's plan on that, right? And let's talk next week. and you let me know how things are going. If it's very clear and it's obvious, then there's no reason to meet until Friday. But if you feel that you want to have a conversation or you're not sure about whether or not you should interview, come by very quickly, tell me what you have, what you're thinking, and I'll try to help.
Okay, today we meet the teacher and I will ask about the schedule. If she has planned on Friday, so today she told me. She told me.
Right. Don't ask too many questions now, though, at the beginning before your first observation at this point. You have information from your questionnaire, kind of leave it. Ask if you need to about when and all of that. But now be very careful about when you talk to the teacher and whether it's an interview, official interview, or if it's just kind of planning your observations.
If you're planning the observation, it is not necessary to record, so?
Not necessarily, but that's what I'm saying. Like if the teacher all of a sudden starts giving you information about, your research questions, then it's like, oh, well, can I record? That's when you kind of have to kind of interrupt and say, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I need to record it, that type of thing. So one thing is kind of just the planning. Another is actual information that helps answer your research questions. So you have to be very conscious about the difference between the two and decide right there if you need to record.
Okay.
What else? So, yeah, plan on something with the students. Now, you don't have to interview all the students.
Can I plan it just before the first observation?
Plan
the interview you will have with the students?
I think it's too early to determine the interview for the students, I think. I think maybe you need to observe a little bit. More. And figure out kind of because just like the teacher interview, you're going to be asking questions to the students very specific to what they did. And you're going to need some evidence. You're going to need to do a very quick analysis of the recordings, how they interacted. And you can say, well, I noticed that you are saying this a lot, or that you guys are interacting this way. And you might have, instead of an interview for each student, in fact, you might have a focus group for each group.
I have a... And what about if in most of the cases, even though they are participating, they are not speaking English?
Well, that maybe that's a question you ask. I mean, that's what you're investigating. I mean, that's what you're researching, no? You're researching how students in small groups are basically talking with each other, right? And
some results may say that they interact, but in Spanish most of the time.
Well, I don't know. Are you talking about English or Spanish? Or are you talking about someone dominating the conversation while the others are shy and they don't want to say anything? Or are you talking about one student who knows more about a certain topic than the others? I mean, there's an infinite number of... That's what you're researching. So there's a lot of possibilities when I don't want to anticipate what you're going to see. This is kind of a type of exploratory research in the sense that you're not sure what's going to happen, and you don't want to anticipate. You really want to write down everything and then look for patterns, look for things that are happening, and then from there, then start asking the students. Okay, I noticed that you were interacting this way, and you ask questions to the group. I think that focus groups for the group, I think, might even be better than maybe the individual interviews. But I think we need to decide that later after you have observed and you have some information, and we can make that decision later. But do plan on either an interview and or focus groups with some or all the students in those two groups. Not the rest of the whole class, but just those two groups. Okay.
So, yes, we start planning that first observation.
Okay. Sounds good then, and we'll talk next week. Let me know how things are going.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.